Welcome and good morning to all of you. Today we are here to discuss a problem in the hospitality industry, and I call it a math problem, right? Because when it comes to food waste and the buffet, we have a serious math problem in my opinion. Now we know that globally 1/3 of all food produced is wasted, and in a hotel environment, that waste is often concentrated in one of the hotel's most iconic offerings globally, the buffet, right? The bigger the buffet, the more luxurious the hotel is. That's the norm, which means, the more waste that you. But we're not here to admire the problem, we are here to solve it. And if we are going to meet the GSTC standards, then we have to stop treating food waste as an invisible cost of doing business. Lots of hoteliers I speak to, they say, yeah, food waste is food waste. Yeah, that's a cost of doing business. As long as you factor in the cost of doing business, you're okay from a math perspective. But that math is flawed. We need to start to treat it as a data-rich opportunity for operational excellence. So we're going to shift to data. So this session is titled Beyond the Buffet for a reason. We're going to move past vague definitions of food waste. We waste too much, the buffet is a problem. We're going to move past all of that, and we're going to look at the internet of waste, right? How do we get data sort of baked into it? To truly save the buffet, we need to understand the numbers behind it. Every panelist you see here today has been challenged to bring some robust data points, some surprising statistic that proves where the leak is, but more importantly, how do we plug that leak? Okay, we're going to look at sensors, engineering, data transparency. All these are not just green initiatives anymore. They are key to a great ROI when it comes to running a hotel and brand value added to that. So we're going to talk about how we turn trash into a resource through mechanical and digital innovations. We're going to talk about how a simple nudge of a smaller plate can make a huge difference. More difference than any number of signs that you can put up at the buffet, and the common myths about guest behavior and how it's actually costing you more money. Now, we hope to stop the waste even before a guest sits down by re-engineering menus to plan forward low-impact strategies that guests actually prefer. So my promise to you all as an audience today is each of my panelists have 8 minutes. And in 8 minutes, they're going to share their stories, either a case study or a facility or a hotel, that changed their bottom line and where their perspective is coming when it comes to food waste. So our goal at the end of this session is that you'll have more data than just inspiration to go back with. Now, we have some of the best minds from academia, consulting, behavioral science to give you a perspective and a blueprint. So let me introduce my guests here. We have Professor Pruk. He graduated, he's a PhD in mechanical engineering from the Carnegie Mellon University in 2007 and began working with the Chiang Mai University as a lecturer for Department of Mechanical Engineering. Here we have a mechanical engineer going to talk to us about food waste, right? Which is interesting in itself. Through time, he has been through several renewable energy and waste management research and development projects. He was appointed the Director of Energy and Research and Development Institute in the Chiang Mai University between 2016 and 2024. Welcome, Professor. We have Ben. Ben is the CEO of Light Blue Consulting, which is a UN awarded tech and consulting company. He is importantly the co-founder of the Pledge. If any of you have gone through the GSTC training, you would have heard about Pledge because we work quite closely with him. So the Pledge on food waste. So Ben is a qualified food waste geek. He's done it for more than a decade. He's also the designer of the multi-award-winning FIT Food Waste Tech. He's dedicated his career to tackling food waste globally in hotel groups, restaurants, government agencies, and international organizations. He has trained over 5,000 culinary professionals and led more than 500 food waste prevention projects across 30+ countries. Ben, welcome to you. Saba. Saba is a behavior change specialist. She works with Behavior Smart, where they work at the intersection of behavioral science and sustainable travel. At Behavior Smart, she designs solutions rooted in science that embed responsible tourism into system design. She's also worked with Royal Enfield's special social mission focusing on creating responsible motorcycle tourism in the high altitude of the Himalayan range. She holds a master's in behavioral and decision sciences from the University of Pennsylvania. She's an avid traveler and a lover of the Himalayas. Saba, welcome to the session. Janjaree, she leads the plant-based solution at Humane World for Animals in Southeast Asia. She helps hotels turn their sustainable commitments into action through a smarter menu design, reducing emissions, minimizing waste, and enhancing guest experience. Her work sits at the intersection of food, behavior, and operational impact. So you can see here. Welcome, Janjaree. So, we have a power-packed panel here, so let's get straight to the point here. We'll first look at how we fixed it part of it. Yeah, to start us off, Professor, from engineering perspective. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. To be honest, I'm very far away from hospitality sections. I do power plants, and somehow food waste is related to energy production that can be consumed within the facility, consumed as a city, or consumed as a nation from as far as the renewable energy goes for the countries goes. Thailand also has one so-called net zero greenhouse gas emission. Right now it's 2050. It used to be 2065. Some uncle has signed the agreement to be 2050. And we have to follow that nonetheless as a part of it. Back to our business, I've been working with so-called waste-to-energy projects from many years ago. Thailand and Southeast Asia and Asians as a whole has been familiar with single-source waste-to-energy power plant for many, many years. Now we start to attack something that's not so single sources, like food waste distributed around tourism city, around the city, as a municipality waste. How do we going to attack that or convert that into energy? And we agree on this topic before the war in the Middle East happens. And then somehow it lines up very well. We start asking ourselves, what happens if we don't have enough LNG imported from the Middle East? What if we don't have enough LPG? What if we don't have enough electricity? So I share some of the models that Thailand has been very familiar with. For example, it's basically a biogas power plant facility. People usually think biogas is for converting waste to methane, convert methane to energy, and then you usually are familiar with the so-called right-hand cycle in the orange circulations. And that's true. We save methane emission by not littering or disposing organic waste anywhere you don't want, in landfills or in open dump site. You release methane, which is a huge impact of greenhouse gases. What people don't realize is you also close the green loop, meaning the nutrient loop is also being utilized when you do biogas system, meaning when you put organic waste into a controlled environment, harvest the energy out, the digest rate that out of the biogas system can be reapplied to the plantation as the chemical fertilizer substitute. In fact, I'll show you some number later on. But then again, the war begins. People start to talk about what if we don't have enough imported urea from the Middle East. Then this can come into the equations. So this is the amount of biogas plant in Thailand. We have a whole lot of biogas plant for the past 20 years. Most of them are animal farms. They know it from the beginning that they have to have it, otherwise they cannot manage their waste. There's only one or two biogas plants in hotels because we never know that we need it. We never think that we need it. So today we think together, what if we can have one of those? These are the basically organic waste as a whole, not just from hotel, but from the whole, from the city scale. Phuket is purple, Bangkok is purple, that's very high. Some Chiang Mai, where I'm from, is also very high. So, and northeastern is purple because generally because the provinces are large. But then, what I like to say here is there's so much untapped potentials in organic waste, and compared to the energy crisis, then some sentences could line up together. Okay, so this is probably the fact that I like to share is that 1 ton of food waste, you generally can easily produce 200 units of electricity from the whole process, or 40 kilograms of LPG. That's a lot for 1,000 kilograms of food waste. So this is a general conversion that you can easily have from food waste. And from the previous session, some audience asked about cooking oil. We used to forget about cooking oil for many years. Now it's coming back. Many of them are collected in a systematic way to resend to refinery to produce sustainable aviation fuel. So right now, this can come up back again. 20 years ago in Thailand, people turns cooking oil into biodiesel. Right now, it's too outdated. We sent it to sustainable aviation fuels factory. So tourism can be less affected by the jet fuel scarcity. So I'll just skip this part. Biogas technology are available. People are familiar with this. It's up to you if you want to use it. I just to skip it to this plant that we have on campus in Chiang Mai University that take care of all the food waste. We don't have the luxury buffet in the campus, but we still have a lot of food waste in an order of probably 8 to 10, like 5 tons per day. And we also accept food waste from the restaurant, from the outside municipality to be delivered to this plant. So this plant largely takes about 10 tons of food waste per day and converts them to electricity on site, plus a methane gas that we injected into vehicles to transport students. Just a demonstration site that these food waste, or all students that ride this bus, you're riding food waste fuel bus. That's a pretty strong message to send to our students. We also have one plant in the south taking waste from palm oil mill factory, converted into biomethane. This is a future of energy delivery. Imagine that if we don't have LPG in the system, we have to produce LPG somehow that is not digged up from underground. So biomethane can be a good substitute for LPGs, either in compressed methane or either in a liquefied natural gas or biomethane. So these are the future delivery that we may see it sooner thanks to President Trump. We may say it's sooner than what we anticipated because in general, this economic of this model is not very well compared to fossil-based LPG, but now it's, I don't know, maybe it will pair up very soon, sooner than we thought. Future prospect, just last 20 seconds of mine. We have initiated this program working with municipality in Chiang Mai to account for all the food waste in any restaurant to be delivered to our plant. So connected to Khun Ram's message on how to drive this platform with data, how to drive this model with data. If you collect data, you can generally produce energy. Then, of course, you can convert this data or transfer data to the origins of a restaurant or hotels, such that they can be accounted for how much methane they have avoided in terms of greenhouse gas emission. So I think that's all that I'd like to say today. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. It's interesting, when you spoke about methane, we all talk about climate change and greenhouse gases, and CO2 is the biggest challenge. Methane is 20 times worse than carbon dioxide when it comes to as a greenhouse gas. Yet, we just throw away food, like you said. It goes and sort of rots in places, emits methane, and that's another contribution. So the tourism industry's contribution to greenhouse gases goes beyond just the fossil fuels. When you look at the food waste, and the result from there is, again, 20 times worse. So thank you, professors, to bring that to light. Ben, stage is yours.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. How are you doing? Nice. Thank you, Professor, for the introduction. Maybe let me bring the French in me, and being a bit controversial in the sense that not every way to tackle food waste are equal, right? So you may be familiar with the food waste pyramid, which is the order of priority when you tackle food waste that you need to consider. And the top one was discussed in the previous panel, which was prevention, for sure. Avoiding it, that's where the biggest impact is. Then if you go down one notch is redistributing for human consumption. If you go one level lower is transforming it for animal feed, and in particular animal that can re-enter the human food chain, right? What we eat. And then it's transformation, typically transformation for something that would ideally go back to feed the soil, that is and nourishing the population, and then transforming for something that is related to energy, for instance. So it's not to question the fundamental benefits of transforming food waste into energy. It's just to remind that, in particular, if you put on your business hat on, prevention has nothing better than this in terms of improving your bottom line. So I'm Benjamin. I thank you for the introduction. Also, earlier, I have been doing nothing else but food waste prevention for the past 13 years. I joined accidentally Accor in 2008 to implement Green Globe. I was in charge of 45 hotels in Southeast Asia, and then quickly realized, when I was a consultant for the UN on greening the hotel industry, that we were talking about waste, but we were not talking about food waste. And I was puzzled. I'm not a chef, never run any operation, but I was going around and doing audits on waste, and it was like, that's weird. Why are those bins full of food? And I would ask those questions to the professionals. I would be like, how many kilos in that bin, and what is it, and why? And how many bins like that do you have throughout the hotel, and how much does it cost you? And they would be looking at me like, as if it didn't matter. So I was shocked. Then I started to look around and realized that there was actually no data around. There was no benchmarking. There were no tools. It was not even a topic. So when I was bringing it up, I was like, hey guys, maybe we should start looking at food waste. Operation team would be like, okay, Treehugger, go and do your stuff. So I managed, persisting, to convince one hotel GM, the Sofitel So at the time, to let me try this methodology. And he was like, yeah, whatever, do your stuff. Over 6 months, I was training the teams, measuring every single items that were going to the bin, collecting those data, putting them on an Excel, then consolidating those data, and basically answering the key question: how much, when, where, what, and why is food wasted? And yeah, long story short, project after project went to present to TCEP, the Thai government, about possibility to implement food waste prevention program in Thailand, combining capacity building plus technology plus reviewing of procedures and accompanying them throughout the process, and asking them, well, what about we ask the beneficiaries to provide evidences of the changes? And they said, yes, that's a good idea. So we came up with a pretty comprehensive list of evidences that we thought hotels should present in order to get that money. And the government was like, good idea, but way too ambitious. So drop it, water it down, give a few ones, which we did. But we're like, well, that's still a good idea. So that was the inception behind the Pledge on Food Waste. So the Pledge on Food Waste was actually came out of this process and identifying all existing best practices that we could see existing in the industry to prevent food waste, to have a holistic approach to your F&B operations in order to minimize food waste, save on costs, and basically gain a competitive edge. So this is the history behind the pledge on food waste, which is third-party certification, holistically approaching these issues of food waste. And I would like to introduce you the few steps that we go through for hotels, restaurants, and canteens, and we started to work in the event space as well. So it is composed of 6 pillars. The approach is pretty similar to any certification scheme in the sense that you start with your documentation, your KPIs, your reporting system. Then it is related to how do you engage your staff, how do you train them, and which staff are supposed to be upskilled when it comes to best practice on food waste prevention. Third pillar is about food waste monitoring and measurement. This is about data, essential to know where you are and where you want to be and what are your strengths and weaknesses. Then the pillar 4 is really about when you look at food as a journey, from the moment you purchase to the moment the food arrives at the back of house, it is dispatched, stored, forecasted, mise en place, served to your guests, and then disposed of. Each of those steps has procedures that must be optimized. So this is what we have been embedding into the criteria in order to ensure that you tighten the screw and food waste is not wasted at each of those steps. And then the pillar number 5 is once you have done your work at the back of house, how do you start engaging with your guests? So I hear a lot of times chefs saying, we can't force the guests to finish their plate. This is not the point. Is how do you nudge them? And I'm very curious to then hear about Saba and her work. How do you use touch points to influence them? Let's move on to the next slide. And the last one will be how do you aim for zero food waste to landfill? So first one is what I mentioned. The policy, the direction is, okay, we're heading that direction. Everybody should be aligned from the top management all the way to the staff knowing what is the direction. Pillar number 2 is about, next slide please, is about staff engagement. As I mentioned, it's not only about training, it's about how do you engage your staff using typically like the canteen to raise awareness and make sure that they, that they walk the talk. If you teach them to reduce food waste when they are working in the kitchens, for instance, when they eat, ideally at the canteen, the message continues, and they are also have to be aware of what is happening and their own behavior. So that's the pillar number 2. Pillar number 3 is about food waste monitoring and data collection. As I mentioned, I will cover it quickly at the end, which is having what we call food waste recording points. Look at your hotel as a matrix and identify everywhere where food is stored, prepared, served, or disposed of, and identify those hotspots and having systems to capture this information. Again, how much, when, where, what, and why is food wasted. Then pillar number 4 is, as I mentioned, let me just, 1 minute quickly. This is the technology that we used in hundreds of Marriott's, Hyatt's, and smaller hotel groups that we have designed over the past 7 years, which is called FIT, Food Intel Tech. This technology is very simple. There is no fancy wow sort of effect, but is dangerously effective. We use very low-cost scales that are connected to generic devices. That could be your phone in your pocket. And those are used as data entry points that we strategically set into those kitchens, from production kitchen to all the dining to fine dining or banqueting kitchens. Information are captured, sent to the clouds, and each kitchen receives a weekly performance report to understand their strengths and weaknesses, as well as which performance metrics is the most impactful. Next slide, please. This is what the sort of performance report is received for each kitchens in multiple languages, for those of you that are operating in countries. So we have it in 13 different languages, and this is maybe something we can cover through the Q&A. So that was my small step on the food waste monitoring. So pillar 4 is about preparation and services. So anything from storage management to forecasting to the way the teams are preparing food, portion size, preferences, all the way to actually serving the food to the guests. And adapting based on the measurements and based on the observations, adapting the way food is presented to the guests. Pillar number 5, next slide, thank you, is about those touch points. What are the touch points that exist between the hotel or the restaurant and their guests, online and on site? in order to nudge them and giving them this feel-good factor that the hotel, the restaurant they picked is doing the right thing to minimize food waste. So it's not about finger pointing, it's not about blaming, it's really about inspiring, getting them to do the right thing. Next pillar is the last one, is once you have done all the preventive measures for your own benefit, for your business purpose, what can you do following the food waste pyramid I was presenting to redistribute food surplus, to transform it for animal feed, to transform it to compost, or ultimately to transform it into energy, but keeping in mind this direction, which is zero food waste to landfill sort of approach to your operation. Next slide, please. Those are some of the case studies with government agencies in the US. It was with the Marriott UK, where we did a rollout throughout their all 55 managed properties with the type of KPIs we are tracking. Next slide, please. This is, well, this is the same next slide, is about, next slide, please. Yeah, those are individual hotels sort of results. I'm seeing some familiar faces. Nino is in the room. We just started to work together from Le Bois. I have also some other colleagues like Kunarut I've been working with for many years now. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Next slide, please. This is a quick overview of the pledge. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, I always tell hoteliers everywhere, go onto the pledge website, and I've been doing this on all my training programs, and register yourself so that you start the journey towards addressing specifically the food waste. Because we've seen enough of the metrics that Ben has shown us, right? It makes sense. So thank you, Ben, for that, yeah? And like you said, we're going to, yeah.
No, I forgot to say, yesterday I almost jumped in because there was a person sharing, the buffet is the main reason for food waste. Is not true. So we have millions of data entry points now. Just keep in mind that food waste from the buffet side, we have 4 categories: spoilage waste, preparation waste, buffet waste, and plate waste. And throughout our past 13 years of collecting those data, buffet waste is only 10 to 15% of hotel food waste. So this is a myth that must be debunked. Right now, this is the visible part of the idea.
Thank you. So now we'll listen to Saba to see what is it that we can do in terms of nudges. Saba?
Yes, I will also stand up. It's always a struggle to sit on these stools as a short person. So I'm going to move a little bit from the technical side to probably what goes behind the scenes in designing some of the systems that Ben talked about, and what thinking, what behavior, what patterns that exist in designing the spreads. As Ram introduced, I work as a behavior change specialist with Behavior Smart. We are a registered organization in Switzerland. We consult with a lot of destinations and travel businesses. What we do is we apply the science of behavior, human psychology, and then apply it to design some of these systems. What is Behavior Smart, and how do we use behavior science to make sustainability work? Behavioral science studies heavily the phenomena of making choices, making decisions. It states that it often depends on your environment, your emotions, your habits, your familiarity, the context that you're in. Even in the context of travel, there is a bucket load of choices that needs to be made, right? In terms of choosing location, things to do, how to commute, what to eat. And then sometimes it's with a lot of research for a traveler, sometimes it's just, shortcuts. So, for example, if I were to go out with a group of friends at the end of a day to a restaurant, we tend to order the same appetizer, the same drink as the previous one did. Probably because we're too tired to make a decision at the end of a long day, or we just got anchored to the previous person's choice, right? So this shows that we're heavily influenced by the moment. What I'm doing is I'm all sharing about behavioral science and then going to link it to our topic for the day. But behavior smart thinking in that context means that consider a traveler, start intending to be eco-conscious, right? They want to avoid plastic, use public transport, and support local businesses. But as the day unfolds, they grab a quick taxi instead of a bus to save time. pick up a plastic water bottle because it's too hard to find a refill station, grab a quick bite at an international food chain versus looking for a local cafe. So even if they intended to start the day being responsible, there's a gap that they fall into, and easily. This is what we call the intention-action gap, or the say-do gap in behavioral sciences. And the reason is, in travel or holiday mode, it is where we want to lose control. We don't want to be in discipline. Sustainability and responsibility is an add-on. Even if we were the most sustainable person back home, we want to enjoy the core experience. We want to be in the moment and maximize our holiday. So behavior smart, or understanding the science of it, basically means to harness this knowledge and design systems in such a way that it becomes effortless and easy for travelers to make these choices. May it become the DNA of tour operators, accommodations, destinations, that thinking about responsibility is not an add-on, but is effortless. And not just in the context of travelers, but also, staff behavior. So linking it to the topic for today, from a lot of work that we do with hotels and restaurants, some of these prominent behaviors that occur through the research and insights. So number one, in the context of a buffet, what goes on when a consumer goes around and fills up their plate? It's the spontaneous desire to satisfy hunger, right? At a buffet, we often see with our eyes than our minds and fill up our plates, right? And when we sit down to eat, diminishing marginal utility kicks in, and maybe we are not able to finish all of that is on the plate, and it gets wasted. Something that I touched upon in my previous slide, in holiday mode, food waste or responsibilities are not on top of mind for a traveler. I don't know how many of you agree, but going for seconds or thirds or refilling is also sometimes taken as, maybe judged, or we're hesitant to do so. Also, another factor is why to go on in a long queue and stand again? Might as well just fill up the plate in one go, right? So understanding these behaviors then is to also dissect the barriers, the psychological barriers that lead to acting in that way. And this is, again, not just for traveler behavior or consumer behavior, but also staff behavior, right? So is it out of habits of familiarity? Is it unawareness? Is it easy or complicated to act responsibly? Is it just lack of interest, or too many choices to make, right? So understanding these barriers will actually lead to then creating tailored solutions. For example, if in a buffet, the objective is to be able to easily spot local food, then may it be placed at a prominent spot, may it be highlighted, may it be made appealing for a consumer to spot the local food and go for it. If it's about managing food waste, then designing the portion size or designing the plate size that then eventually automatically leads to the behavior of not having overflowing plates. For hotels or restaurants, when designing their spread, think of it as a journey map where you bring together multitude of factors like, making local or seasonal appealing, default at prominent spots, blow waste managed through, portion sizes and plate sizes, package-free water and other dishes made attractive. So again, it is blending into automated behavior and in the system design rather than through, information. But information is also critically and strategically very important. Reduced plate size alone may not work, but we saw in Ben's slide that there was a little caption on the table that small portions, refills are welcome. Some of that strategically placed communication also leads to then bringing together the desired behavior. Next, I'm going to highlight a few case studies from our work in a few countries, which was through the First Mile project. I'm going to, of course, share only the food waste examples, but we've worked on a multitude of topics. This project was co-funded by EU under the Single Market Program. We worked with 80 SMEs across Norway, France, Italy, and Slovenia. So what they did is they applied behavior smart techniques to their challenges, everyday challenges, and then they saw tremendous results, right? For example, this hotel in Norway, they applied fixed default portions, had a premium local layout, and repositioned some high waste items. They monitored which items were getting wasted through a period of time, and saw a 75% reduction in food waste per guest per breakfast. Similarly, another tour operator in Italy for kids had this taste first buffet service where children were encouraged to take smaller portions and come back for more. So saw 49% decrease in food waste produced per week per participant. And lastly, this accommodation in Norway wanted to promote local menus, local food. So they redesigned their menu in such a way that storytelling was incorporated, and even another principle in behavioral science we call scarcity principle. You must be familiar. When sales are going on, there is a timer on different online portals saying 24 hours to go, buy more. So scarcity principle, where they had local menus available only with the pre-order, which led to 383% increase of local menus sold. With this, I want to leave you with a thank you. But we have also digitized a lot of our behavior science-backed solutions, which are simple but strategic actions backed by science and data on this platform. Feel free to check out through this QR code. Thank you.
Thank you, Saba. We always talk about our eyes being bigger than our stomach, right? We eat with our eyes first before we realize, whether we need it or not. So it's interesting, some of the solutions that you produce. Thank you for that. Before Janjaree starts, I want to remind you all have the Slido app. So if you have any questions, pop the questions over. If you want specific panelists to answer them, say that this question is for a specific panelist. Yeah? So please go ahead and post your questions on Slido. Janjaree, stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ram. Hi, I'm Janjaree. Thank you, everyone, for coming here, and thank you, GSTC, for having me. And we are from the human world for animal, and today let's talk about reducing food waste through the menu design, behavior change by shifting away from animal-based product. And I'm very lucky today that I have my colleagues here today, Lalada and Hang. So they are sitting there in the chair. So if you wanted to talk to them about high welfare animal product and plant-based program, let's connect after. So let's just talk a little bit. So I'm one of the few people in this conference. We represent animals, and we cover a wide range of animals, topic from live lice, animals used in laboratory, in research, companion animals, and we represent the farm team, the farm animal welfare and protection. We've been around for 70 years, and we rebrand last year from the Humane Society International to Humane World for Animals. And I am part of the plant-based solution team. And what we see in the gap right now in the culinary, anyone from food and beverage here? Raise your hand. From hotels. I actually know a lot of people. Thank you. Thank you. So we see the gap in the culinary skill at the moment. We see that the demand that people are looking for healthy, sustainable, low carbon, climate friendly. And there are also people there are hotels, restaurants that are looking to address diverse guest preferences. Ram just organized wedding for 400 people, and he has people with gluten intolerance, lactose intolerance, mint allergy. And with plant-based culinary skill, you can address diverse guest dietary preference. And you can also reduce food waste. Let's learn how. And this is what we do. This is my job, and I love my job. I go into the Rio kitchen in the hotel, and we work with them to reduce animal product, and we work with the food and beverage team, with the chef, to redesign the menu. We add more plant-based option on the menu. We make sure that we have delicious, satisfying plant-based options. So not just plant-based, We don't treat plant-based as afterthought. It has to be delicious. It has to be profitable. It has something that customer will love and come back to order. And we give the hands-on culinary training, and we help with the marketing and the positioning. We also do the environmental impact assessment. And this is something that we don't talk much, that reducing animal product is contribute to immense impact. We don't talk about it enough. Around 20 to 50% reduction of emission. And this is the hotels that we've been working with. I focus in Southeast Asia. We hopefully work with more hotels, and we are a nonprofit, and we offer the services and consultancy at no cost. So looking forward to work with you more hotels. And let's talk about the food waste. We often talk about the waste after it's happened. Of course, Professor Pruk talked about making biofuel from the waste. Benjamin talking about measuring all the waste. And then Saba talked about the behavioral nudge to get people to eat all the food and then get less food on their plate. I want to talk about the step before that. We want to work upstream. We want to, at the design level, we want to design the food, position the food, and procure the menu that have less waste. So at the design level and at the procurement level. And that's where the impact happens. And all food waste is not equal. Let's talk about animal-based product. Professor Pruk already talked about the methane from the animal agriculture. So the footprint from the animal product is already begun before the kitchen. It's begun in a farm. It's beginning in a farm. It's take a lot of energy, land, animal feed. We need crop to feed the animals. We need transportation, and the animal product, meat, dairy, seafood, is highly perishable. It's rot easily, and it's harder to handle. Once you take it out from the freezer, you have to handle it in a very hygienic way. The food safety is not as flexible, and since it has higher costs, in your wallet, from your pocket, is also have higher costs to the environment. And let's look at plant-based ingredient. Plant-based ingredients generally has a longer shelf life. Think legume, think pulses. It has 2-year shelf life, and it's easier to handle. It's easy to repurpose and reuse. I'm going to show you more example. Basically wasting, I have 2 minutes. So basically wasting animal-based product, it's mean. It's cost more in your pocket and to the environment. So let's talk about, so Ram telling me to make it to be very clear about the action point. So number one, if you rely heavily on animal product, that's gonna end up, the waste that you produce from the buffet, that's gonna end up being high impact waste. If you rely less on the animal product and add more plant-based option, even 20% more, that's gonna make quite drastic improvement in your waste already. So just at the design level, reduce and just 20% is gonna make a difference already. Then the second one is to make sure that you really position it well when you have, so now that you have the plant-based option on your menu, on your buffet, make sure that you're not treating it as an afterthought. So you need to position it as Chef Saba recommendation. Benjamin's grandma favorite bruschetta on the buffet. So meaning Meaning you're going to make sure that the customer will want to get it from the buffet or the people want to order it. So make it celebrated, make it intentional, make it sound indulgent. And that's kind of like also a behavioral nudge, meaning we are changing behavior without customer knowing. So we wanted to make sure that it's really sell. If it doesn't sell, it's going to go to waste, and Benjamin have to measure it. And then we want to start small and learn from it. So most of the hotel we work with, they start with the breakfast first, and that really worked well. So they add 20% plant-based option on the menu, and then they learn from it, they measure the success, and then they roll out to all other outlets in the hotel. Great. So I wanted to give you, I wanted to give you a very quick example here. So this is the papaya seed that usually get thrown away, and we see papaya all over Southeast Asia. It's always in the breakfast, and we work with the hotel. This is Ibis Bangkok Impact in Bangkok, and they're super creative, and they use this seed that usually get thrown away. They dry it and they season it. They add more seed into it, and they make it to become this delicious crackers. And you can use it as garnish. You can use it as snack, and it's delicious. I'm serious. I'm a big foodie, and it's very good. So I hope this is a very good way to repurpose the waste. I'm almost done. Yeah. So all in all, I want to say that the power lies in your hand. The power is within the designing the menu, the procurement, to prevent waste, even before so work upstream to prevent the waste. And bonus point, if you reduce reliance on animal product. Thank you.
Thank you, Janjaree. If you all have questions, please start posting it on Slido so that we can start to answer that. So there you have it. You know, all the four panelists have given you the perspective. I'm going to start with, I have a question for Saba. Saba, one of the questions of hotels with limited resources, what is the first step or lowest hanging fruit in implementing a data-driven approach to reducing food waste? Now, when it comes to behavioral science, I understand nudges, right? The best example I always give people on behavioral science is those days when we had the roads in the US, apparently, cars used to go up and down after cars were invented, and they used to bang each other. Till somebody came up with a behavioral nudge. They just drew a line in the center of the road and told people, you should drive on either side. That was just a simple nudge for people to start to change their behavior, right? So which will be the easiest, you think, in terms of lowest hanging fruit on what it is that people can do? The reason I'm asking the question is because we were in Turkey for the conference in Antalya. That hotel in Antalya, they had a buffet, but it was a closed buffet. So there was a glass in front, and you had to give your plate, and they served your food. So I asked the owner, saying, how come you have this here? And they implemented that during COVID because they didn't want anybody to contact the food. And he was telling me, just with a closed buffet system, he reduced food waste by over 30%. Because you're embarrassed to give your plate again to the same guy and tell him, okay, I want another 100 pieces of chicken. Right? You're embarrassed to do that. So this was something that I saw in Turkey, which I thought was brilliant. Anything else you can sort of talk to us about this?
Thank you for that question. Actually, so with nudge, what we mean is, it's one tactic, but, again, you have to understand the whole process of, doing a behavioral diagnosis and then coming to a design. With respect to buffets, the tension lies between, the ability to, or the capacity for hotels and even luxury, restaurants to probably serve in abundance, but also then manage the food waste, right? So the first step or the lowest hanging fruit is, something that I showed in my slides also. is to really map this journey of your service design. Is to really do this sort of a behavioral scan or an audit. I don't like to use that word, it's a little bit more technical for these folks here, but it's just to simply to start with, this behavioral scan, this outlay of how your service design looks like on your buffet, on your spread. Because even if you have the communication, even if you have the small plates, even if you have local visible, it needs to come together on different touch points. Where is it failing? Where is it working the most? Because what's the point if you have smaller plates but portion sizes do not match that, right? So where is it failing? What's the point in having communication only at the beginning but not at the middle points of through the buffet line? So those interventions are equally important, that your communication is spread through the buffet, your design is in such a way that brings it to the prominence of the attention of the consumer. So all of these together can come out when you start with a quick scan, a quick audit, a quick measuring, which is again very critical, through a period of time, and then reiterating the process.
Thank you. Ben, I want you to take the same question. Yeah, from a data-driven approach, to food waste, which is the lowest hanging fruit? I mean, if people sign up to your tech and they'll be able to measure it over time and stuff like that. But in terms of what is it that quickly that people can implement from a data perspective?
Well, super straightforward, and indeed, I don't believe that technology is going to solve the food waste issue. It's a tool, it's a mean, it helps to collect information, but it won't change mindset, it won't change procedures and way of working. The low-hanging fruit, to me, there are three key components that are effectively like cost zero: leadership that gives a direction, training of the staff, raising awareness, making it a topic that is being discussed, and then simple measurement. So staff most of the hotels do not know exactly how much they're wasting. And when they are monitoring, usually they're monitoring from the all-day dining, hence the data I was sharing earlier, and would forget like the production kitchen and the other outlets. So a simple way is, for instance, you tell your stewarding team, you monitor or you take a measurement before the waste hauling company is coming and picking up your waste. And do so over 7 days. That is your starting baseline. This is what comes out. There is no way to cheat that. You can't hide it, except if people would go home with their bins. So those 3 steps, leadership plus capacity building plus simple measurement, is your starting point. And then from that point onwards, as was shared by my colleagues earlier, step by step you can refine your measurement system. Then you start to understand, okay, you start having multiple recording points if you want to, and then you start defining categories, and then you cut it by shifts, and then by type, meaning ingredients. So you can do it step by step, and you don't need to have deep pockets to have food waste minimization strategies in place, for sure.
Thank you. There's one more question which has come in for you, which says that UN Tourism notes that only 18% of countries have included measures related to food waste reduction in the NDCs. Do you support governments in this direction? Be careful when you answer this.
Anyone from the government sector here?
There she is. She's watching you.
Well, it's
Be
interesting
careful.
because yesterday I was talking on a webinar with the European Commission, because there's a new law on food waste reduction with a pretty ambitious target of 30% reduction within 2030. This law will then be pushed to government to ensure that they will be implementing this, and this specifically says 10% reduction for food waste on the manufacturing side, and then food manufacturing, and 30% for retail, food services, and household. Baseline 2021, and then it's always the question of what is the baseline and how was it measured, which in that case is probably non-existent in most cases. So it's a bit sad, but the countries know and acknowledge this is an issue. The governments, of course, are aware. Unfortunately, it's usually the lowest part of the food waste pyramid, which is addressed, which is transformation, which is great, but it's not is not good enough. So the government is a bit like what I was sharing in my example when we work with destinations or government agencies, is to design typically programs that are onboarding hotels, restaurants, or canteens into a journey following a similar methodology. Typically, that could be around food waste monitoring or applying, for instance, the pledge and the criteria, and going through that journey. So government plays an important role in showing case studies and bringing the topic on the table, as well as setting some rules and expectations if they want to have, the stick or the carrot. I think it's
interesting you say that, but we know that governments are aware that there is a challenge. We know that governments are aware that there are solutions.
Yeah.
What is the barrier? Why isn't it happening then at a policy level? Why aren't governments able to move? It has to do more than just bureaucracy and governance issues.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what is it that's stopping governments then?
I don't know. Ask them. I would love to speak to them.
We have the data. Talk to us.
We have the data. We have the solution. We've been doing this for the past 13 years. Yes, just open the doors, and we'd love to speak to them. No, but seriously, and I think it's kind of the general atmosphere from this sort of conference. So many solutions out there. The problem is obvious. We're about to hit the wall. Climate change is about to destroy us. And we're just still sitting there. So private sector is one thing. We are mainly working with the private sector. We're using the financial, I would say, pressure points, because measurement equals how much does it cost you on a day-to-day basis. That really what triggers change on the private sector side, B2B. But working with governments, it's slow. It's very unambitious most of the time, and it's failing people in general, because they have the power to really make a difference. So I don't know if anyone can introduce.
No, you're right. The answer is not very evident, because if the answer was evident, it would all be happening now, right? So there's a lot of soul searching that's sort of happening. Professor Pruk, for you, is it the case that perhaps technologies are not sort of advanced enough or available enough for this change to happen? The reason I ask the question is because at one end of the spectrum, getting travelers to change their behavior, fine, people like Saba and Janjaree are working on that. But sometimes we say use technology so that their behavior doesn't matter, but we are still able to prevent. Like you said, all the biogas systems and all of that you have. How do we then get that across to individual hotels? How does that work? So we can use, so if there's an abundance of technology available, then governments cannot do anything else but tow line. Hotels will have to tow line. Is that something that is easily available, you think?
Right. I agree with everybody that technology, especially to change food waste to energy, is the bottom of the chain, the bottom of the pyramid. You cannot do anything else with those food waste, then you change it to energy. And then when it comes to that, technology is the very least of the problem. People know that technology for hundreds of years. And why it doesn't happen, I think financial, pressure points, it doesn't worth doing it. It hasn't been worthwhile doing that. It hasn't been pressure enough for people to care about that. But now things start to change. Global warming's coming, and then related to your question, I think the transparency of the data that transport directly, like hotels are being pressured by reporting their footprint. Those footprint transform back to the customer. If you somehow can show that, if you leave this, it's going to leave this much footprint. And customer behavior start to absorb that. I think it could change in the behavioral level. But then coming to the question, technologies are very available. It's very easy to do anything. You want to convert that to animal feed. You want to convert that to fertilizer. You want to convert to energy. It's super easy, super convenient to do so. I don't believe technology is any of the threshold at all.
We have enough of that available. Okay. Ben, I want you to take the next question. Moisture content of waste affects its weight. When weighing weight, is it recommended to drain the waste or not? To what extent, you know?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is something we go through with our partners at the beginning, which is what are the type of items that will be excluded from the food waste monitoring system. It has to be easy. It has to be simple. It has to be embedded in the way the kitchens are run day in, day out. If it is too complicated, it won't work. So, yes, there are some items. So we would recommend you and let the executive chefs and their team decide if they include it or not. So typically big bones, we recommend not to include them. We recommend for some items that are obvious, so for those of you that are Thai, like tom yum, for instance, to drain and not put all the liquids. But it's up to them. They need to adapt and find a system that works for them. And the key component is consistency. So when we start monitoring food waste, there is this baseline setting moment, which is you don't know where you're starting from. So first 7 to 14 days is you and yourself, what is your starting point? And then from that point onwards, it will be your new you and how you compare your new performance to your initial performance. So you just have to be consistent. If you were excluding bones, you're not going to start counting them after. If you're excluding obvious things such as pineapple rind or this sort of stuff, continue that way. But be consistent, otherwise your data will be screwed and crap data in, crap data out.
Okay, thank you. Janjaree, if you could take the next question. You know, give us some good practices to influence guests for more conscious consumption. You know, and I want Saba also to take the same question, you know, after Janjaree answers.
Of course, we wanted to integrate, we don't want to separate low carbon food from the regular food. We wanted to integrate everything within the same buffet, the same menu. You don't want people to feel like they are leaving out something, meaning, okay, I have to eat boring food, boring vegetarian food, but you wanted to call it a very, you want to use indulging word, and then you wanted to put same precision, same creativity, same technique that you create regular food, animal dishes. You want that to go to the plant-based dishes, and then make sure that this plant-based is delicious and satisfying for the guests. I want to highlight just one case study. This is happened in Panera. It's sandwich and soup restaurant chain in North America. So they used to call the bean soup healthy vegetarian bean soup. And when they changed the menu to Cuban black bean soup, just by switching the language, the sale rose by 14% in 1 month. So position your food with intention, with the creativity, the same care that you put in other animal dishes. Yeah, and make it easy for the customer to choose conscious choices. Put it on the face, put it in front of the buffet line. You know, if you want this delicious plant-centered, plant-forward dish, put it right in front of the buffet, and then also make it very visible, make it easy for the customer to take that food. And also, can I just add one more thing? And then, if you wanted to comment to when it's come to making choice, restriction to making choice when the customer need to order from the menu, make sure that your front of the house staff, make sure they really position and sell your dishes well. If you want to sell the low carbon, low waste food, plant forward dishes, make sure that your staff, they approve that dish. Make sure that they really, meaning they really like the taste of the food. They're very proud of the food because they're going to be the ones selling the food. So, yeah, your plant-based, low waste, climate-friendly food has to be delicious and satisfying.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know resorts which says you're pure vegetarian and nobody wants to go there. Which is strange, right? Because there are millions of vegetarians in the world, but that does happen. Sabah, what's your view on this?
I think that's the challenge that, I mean, I'll speak about the challenge first. It is very difficult to bring in, any element of guilt or morality when you want to influence conscious consumption, because it does not work, right? And then it is in stark contrast with having that experience, that, core experience, or not jeopardizing at all with that. Another psychological barrier to it is that, abundance also, signifies that, it's appealing to the experience. So again, you don't want to really, mess with that. But there are different ways to do it. I'm a big proponent of something that I observed at a big corporate that serves buffets for all 3 meals. Not going to take names here, but there was a creativity induced when after their lunch buffet, the next is their snack time, and any high waste item or leftovers is within the stipulated and the mechanics and technicalities of it considered. They create for their snack spread the repurposed dish of the day. Now, and then you name it that this is, they name it that this is the repurposed dish of the day, which was very interesting to observe, because it's a huge corporate. It signifies, abundance, and it signifies a behavioral aspect that, they probably shouldn't be conservative on that. But, it's about introducing these gentle pilots and leading the way to then for, rest of different tiers of players in the industry. But also, again, communication is very, very key, right? Something like, we put in a lot of hard work to manage food waste, and, thank you for helping us do that. So, then these little, aspects of behavioral interventions then can influence guests. It is absolutely very, very difficult to just work through information and just work through, thinking that, conscious consumption would come naturally.
On this, I would just add, if you're interested in this, I'm sure it's one of the component of your work. The research by Professor Cialdini, you also maybe have heard of the principles of influencing behavior, and how to get people to say yes. That's how he twisted it. And he took an example of the towels in the hotels, and why does it work or it doesn't work. And so he's sharing those different principles, such as some that you mentioned: fear of missing out, authority, those related to the sense of urgency, as they use, without realizing when you book a room, only 4 rooms available or only 7 minutes to book it. This sort of principles, I encourage you to watch. They have some very self-explanatory videos on YouTube. Robert Cialdini, this could be a good base to get started on how do you want to nudge and influence the behavior of your guests.
That book led me to apply for my master's and pick up this career. So, influenced by Robert Cialdini, I also highly recommend the book.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Ben, could you take the next one? Share more highlights on food wastage percentages, so buffet spoilage, among others. Do you have that data in your...
Yeah, how much time do you have? Because I could speak about that for 3 months straight.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, on 1 minute. Well, it's more complicated than that, in the sense that, what is a hotel? Is it 50 keys? Is it 1,000 keys? We work with a wide range from single restaurants with 20 seats to massive, largest hotel in Asia Pacific that serve like 5,000 covers a day. So it really depends on multiple factors. Is it urban? Is it in a resort on an island? But, well, let's put it this way. 5-star hotels that have all the dining would be wasting on average, if you take in terms of ratio, it would be roughly 60%, 50% that are pre-consumer food waste. So this is the waste that you never see. That is happening behind closed doors. And this is the two categories that we mentioned, which is spoilage waste and preparation waste. Then buffet waste, I mentioned 10 to 15%, and then plate waste, which is customer leaving food on their plate, is the remaining. So those are kind of rule of thumbs. But I think what is important for those of you that are still hesitating, and if you are in the hospitality sector and hesitating in tackling that issue, is the importance of measurement so they can put, as again, a price tag and realize how much is going through to the bin every single day. Before considering should we do something or invest into some solutions, the answer is obviously yes if you have a certain level of wastage, because the payback is just ridiculously short. But if not perceived as money going down the drain, which is actually the case, then it changes the narrative. And again, we go into behavioral, but towards your own team or towards your management, which I think is key.
So in your measurements in the pledge, do you also measure, say, for events, MICE events and stuff?
Yeah, so this is something we started with large congresses, and I was very, very curious to see that there isn't much solutions or even attention given to the issue of food waste in large events, in the MICE industry. And I think that most of you that have attended conferences we're always a bit puzzled about what is happening with all that food. So we built kind of a spin-off of the pledge that is initially for hotels, restaurants, and canteen for large events. That is called the Pledge for Events. And the methodology is pretty simple, is having preventive measures in place before and during the event, as well as ensuring that all food surplus is properly kept in respecting the hygiene conditions, and connecting with the local ecosystem to redistribute this food surplus for charity. And whatever is not suitable for human consumption is properly segregated in terms of waste so that it can be transformed. So this simple approach to waste, to food waste prevention and transformation leads to great results. And on top of that, we measure to see what is the impact.
Okay. Janjaree, if you can take the next one, local culinary traditions. Does it play in inspiring plant-based menus that reduces food during celebrations? You'll have to give me a quick answer because we're running out.
There are so many ingredients that are untapped. People are not using it enough. There are watermelon. I think Benjamin are already using it. There is watermelon rind. You can make salad from it. You can make pickle from it. You can make tapache from the pineapple skin. There's so many, and there is this, the jackfruit, the seed itself, it can become curry. You can make the dip out of it. There's so many. So yeah, plant-based ingredient is extremely versatile.
So basically, moving towards closer to your culture, there is a role that can play also.
Yes, totally. Since it's extremely versatile and is largely available in many parts of the world, so it's play important role, and it will enhance the culinary experience of the culture. It's celebrating your culture, especially when food is very important in your culture. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, plant-based, and also using food waste to amplify your culture and culinary.
Thank you. I will very quickly answer the last one. Is it a good practice for staff to eat guest food? I mean, there must be hospitality experts here there are differing views here. You have a staff canteen separately for a specific reason. Otherwise, the guest food, people tend to cook too much so that it's left out so that staff can eat. So there are two sides to it, depending on the culture of the organization. So I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. It'll really depend on the culture of the organization. Because you don't want a situation where you're cooking, say, lobsters, for example, and instead of cooking 2 kilos, they cook 10 kilos so the staff can eat it. Right? It's going to be a challenge in terms of sustainable management itself. Yeah, so that's something which is up. Excellent. Go ahead.
I have a little bit to add about the MICE events. From my experience, sometimes the procurement itself can enforce an event to be, for example, carbon-free events. So the organizer has to manage everything, including food and food waste. Otherwise, they're going to have to spend the money at the end to buy carbon credit to offset that. So many government authorities in Thailand start to hire organizer for carbon-free events, and that's one way to enforce everything has to be properly managed, especially food waste as well.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you so much. So thank you to the panelists again for sharing your insights, and thank you to the audience for listening to everybody patiently. Lunch is being served outside, I guess. Thank you all.